looking forward to that for sure. Okay, I think we're live, right? Let's give it a few seconds. There's always a bit of a delay, but yeah, we see the red light, so we are live. Good afternoon, everybody. The RC Avengers are back with another action-packed webinar. My name is Julian. I'm the Chief Evangelist for RC, and today I have three fantastic guests. So, in no particular order, we have Abhishek and his fancy hat, right? Abhishek recently joined. You may remember him from Hugging Face and Kaggle. He's done all kind of amazing things, and he's now working on Conductor. So we'll get into that in a second. We have Lucas, which was already with me last time. Lucas, nice to have you back.
Good to be back, Julian. Thank you.
And Lucas is co-leading RC Labs, our research arm. And we have Fernando, who's working on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, sometimes on a minute basis with Lucas to build all our cool products and models. Fernando, we're very happy to have you as well.
Glad to be here.
And we're all over the world too, right? So I'm still based out of Paris. Abhishek, where are you? Are you in Norway? Are you're on mute? Yeah. Yeah, I think Abhishek is in Norway. Lucas, you're in the US. And Fernando, where are you?
São Paulo, Brazil.
Nice. You're the lucky one. Okay, you're the lucky one. Okay, so today we are going to talk about our latest launch. And of course, I mean Arcee Conductor. And chances are, if you are watching this, you probably saw our announcements. Maybe you're already using Conductor. And today we're going to show you Conductor in detail. Lucas is going to jump into a demo in a few minutes. And of course, we'll discuss how we built it, and we'll answer all your questions. So you have a chat box. Feel free to use it. And we'll try to keep an eye on it during the conversation and answer as many questions as we can. Okay, guys, you ready for this? Let's get started. So, Lucas, can you explain Conductor in 60 seconds?
Yes. So Conductor is our way of trying to give customers the best of both worlds. So we have a lot of really powerful small language models that are smaller, cheaper, faster for the most part compared to kind of what you'll get from the leading closed source kind of frontier APIs. And what we noticed was in our day-to-day usage of these models and training and evaluation is that they solve for, 50 to 60% of like real world tasks that someone might want to use. Now, and that's excluding the kind of AI hype bubble, which is very primarily related to like engineers, coders, people who are doing stuff that are not, that a lot of these smaller and less frontier oriented models are less skilled at. So, but for your day-to-day average LLM use from, your kind of, median average human being that's interacting with ChatGPT or Claude, we found that you could use our models and save yourself a lot of money. So instead of going to people and saying, hey, you should just use us instead of ChatGPT, because people are hesitant to do that. You get, you get a brand identity, you get comfortable with something, you put a lot of your not just, day-to-day workflow through these systems, but it becomes a part of like your career and how you're making your money and your kind of livelihood depends on it, right? So we said,
sure.
Use us in addition to, and the easiest way to do that was to train a classifier that's very tiny, that is for all intents and purposes basically a complexity classifier. Given how difficult a query would be, not for a human to answer, but for an LLM specifically to answer.
Yes.
Which model should we go to? And then we kind of have a ranking system that we use.
So find, I love simple things. So, I guess the promise is you hit Conductor with your queries, and the router model analyzes that, and we'll double click on that, and sends the query to the best and most cost-effective model for this, giving you hopefully faster response and a very cost-effective response. And we only go to the fancy but expensive LLMs when we have to, right? So why don't we show Conductor right away, and make it very, pragmatic for the audience here. So Lucas, feel free to share your screen and run some prompts and walk us through the Conductor UI. We'll talk about the API too, but just give us a quick sense of what the service looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. Are we able to verify that people can see my screen?
Yes,
Okay,
it is
good.
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 I see it at least.
Well, good. That's all I care about. So I will go here so you guys don't have to see all of my chaotic testing prompts, but I'll just take a few that I've thought of. So here's one. This is a pretty decent prompt that is, not hyper specific in any. There's not a single model that I would think of that is particularly strong at explaining the keto diet.
Yeah.
And
typically what you would get, let's say, from maybe a Wikipedia page, right? I mean,
yeah.
that's the, I mean, I wouldn't know the answer, but I would know where to find it.
So. Exactly. And that's actually an interesting point, is that what we found is that for most knowledge retrieval tasks that are things that the model would have found on Wikipedia during training or something along those lines, smaller models are quite good.
Okay.
Because they're just, regurgitating what they read on the internet. So I'm going to send this prompt, and you're going to see the model's going to classify it, and then it's going to route it to the best model for this task. Now,
and we see at the top, on the top left, we see auto. So that's a drop-down box, actually, where here we're literally in Conductor mode. We could go and hit Blitz or Virtuoso Large if we wanted to, but here we're just hitting the router. Okay, so which model did we pick this time? Okay,
this one went to Blitz because it was correct. I mean, it's a low complexity task, and then in the UI we have a nice little kind of summary that's generated in order to kind of tell you why a certain model was chosen, right?
Okay, and Blitz is our one of our recent models. It's a 24 billion Mistral model that we improved. It's on Hugging Face. And it's the most cost effective, so pretty fast, and you can see the cost of the query. It's a lot of zeros.
Yeah. So here's what I'll do. I'll show you this. I'll put in the same prompt.
Yes.
But I will compare against using Claude Sonnet. And I apologize if you hear a leaf blower outside my house. They decided to do it in an opportune
it's
time.
always like that. No worries.
But and one thing you'll note is we made these classifiers really tiny, so that there would be like a negligible delay. We're having quite a bit of demand for this product, so we're working on auto scaling that quite well. So we'll be fixing that shortly. But I'm going to send these. You'll see Claude starts first again because we need to classify auto. But the one thing you'll see is that the cost is going to be unbelievably lower, and the answer is negligibly. I would argue not even. Considerably better, right?
I actually did the math. It's simple math, so I was able to do it. And Blitz, token generation with Blitz, so text generation with Blitz, is 300 times, not 300%, 300 times more cost effective. It's 5 cents per million output tokens.
Yep.
And Sonnet, which is an amazing model, no doubt about it, is $15. $15. So that's not money well spent on that kind of low complexity.
Well, and that's the thing about Conductor is so most people are going to go, most businesses and individual developers are going to go to Sonnet, or they're going to go to 4.5, GPT 4.5 or whenever GPT 5. They're going to go to whatever the best is because they assume that they want the best, that the task they're doing requires the absolute best. And that's not, there's many AI use cases and companies that were founded based off the original Chat GPT, like GPT-4 model. And now we are beating GPT-4 performance in a 20 billion parameter model. So there's no reason to, unless you're doing the things that these models are really kind of trained for now, which is like science, coding, and math, there really isn't an extreme reason to go to them.
For everyday, let's say, business productivity tasks, which, everybody will hate to admit it, but it's probably 80% of your prompts. It's like translate this, rewrite that, improve this email, summarize.
Well, especially
this.
when I
the
use
usual stuff. We don't need the monster LLMs and their price tag for that.
No, and so that's kind of the value prop behind Conductor.
Okay, show us a couple more prompts.
Let's do. I'm gonna
and then we'll try to get all the secrets from Fernando.
Oh gosh, dude. He might just give them to you.
No, you won't.
Let's
You
see.
won't. But we want to know more.
Here's another one. So this is, I mean, what you're gonna find, and this is also something for people who are watching, is because the way we, and Fernando can go into this a little bit more, the way we trained the router was not based on a human annotated version of what complexity was. That tasks that we might consider quite complex as humans are going to come back as rather low complexity from the classifier, and that's the whole point. Is that we were trying to kind of grok, for lack of a better term, like what the undescribable quality of complexity was. And so I think this one's going to be Blitz too, which is funny because I came up with all the, yeah, came back with Blitz too. So what's
Yeah.
funny is I went through, I mean, I could, Fernando, do you have like any decent prompt that you've seen that kind of routes away from? Because with all of these rather, if you can see here, you know, cryptocurrency risks, how do I,
Yeah.
you know, we can do this one. How about,
Yeah. Coding tends to go to Sone a lot.
well, I do, and that's
Yeah.
by design for now, is
Yeah.
because we're working on how we can best integrate like a coding orchestration suite within
Mhm.
Conductor. I've just hard coded it. If it's coding, it goes to Sonnet because I
Okay,
want
that's
to, you know
fine.
what I
All
mean.
right,
I
there
want
you
to
go.
be sure if people want to, you know, let's give them that
Okay.
for now and then build out something better. So again, this is going to Blitz, but I can show that off. So if I go here and I do, you know, write the, you know, a Python script to show the Fibonacci sequence. This is likely going to classify it as coding,
Mhm.
regardless of what the complexity of the task is. It's going to
Okay.
send it to Sonnet. So let's see.
Okay.
Oh, and as you can see here, okay, we have a nice little
Oh
animation
yeah,
that
I love
plays
that
when it.
animation.
Yeah. And as you saw, yeah, see, since
Okay, that's
it
funny.
came back as code generation.
Okay, okay, I have one for you. Try um, explain put and call options and give me an example.
This I wouldn't be surprised if it went to Blitz. It very well might go to Virtuoso large or medium too. I
Yeah,
would be
we'll see.
surprised if this went to one of the larger ones. Oh, I think this is gonna be Flash. I can tell from the way that it's streaming. Yes.
There we
It's
go.
gonna do my
Okay.
Flash.
All
Yeah.
right. So, okay, so go and try that out. I mean, it's open for business definitely. You just need to go to you can go to conductor.rc.ai and you can sign up. And for a limited time, I'm not sure if we agreed to the date yet, but for let's say for a limited time, you will get $200 of free
Yeah.
inference. And by now, it's pretty clear that if you hit Blitz or the most cost-effective models in the list, $200 are
It's gonna
gonna
take you a
take
while.
you very,
Yeah.
very far. It's gonna be hundreds of millions of tokens,
Yeah.
unless you play with Sonet all day, and then you're gonna burn that cash and ask me for more, and I'll say no because you really need to use the smaller models all the time, right? That's the thing. Okay, so I think we get the idea. So conductor.rc.ai. Thank you, Lucas, for the demo. You can compare the different models to see, well, for these prompts, really the LLMs are not doing a really better job. And even if they are, am I willing to pay 100 times or 200 times or 300 times more for this? Absolutely not, right? So that's the thing. So now I think we'd like to understand a little more what this router is. And of course, Fernando, being a researcher, it will sell, or not sell, it will tell all the secrets. So don't tell all the secrets. But I think that's the key element is the router. So Fernando, can you tell us a little more how you're training that? Uh, do we use the fancy techniques that we usually use, model merging and distillation, or do we go crazy on that, or is it simpler than that? I think everybody's curious about that tiny model.
Cool. Well, uh, the first thing that we should realize that actually Lucas has already mentioned is the fact that LLMs doesn't know what they don't know, right?
Hmm.
So if you just prompt the fanciest large language model regarding the complexity of anything, uh, it's just going to try to guess, but without any kind of robustness that we need to implement a policy. So the first thing that we should be aware of is we must keep on mind we are trying to introduce an optimal policy which is going to enable us to, in this case, save money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a must-have a policy in order to solve an optimization problem, right? And then comes to the challenge: how can we understand what is complex for those models, and on the other hand, how can we scale synthetic data in order to enable us to train these models? In this case, this is a ranking system, so it's not a regression, it's not a classification, it's what we call a ranking model, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the tricky part here is that it's going to be very, very hard for every single time to predict. This is basically why we have thought of the problem as an ordering problem instead of a classification problem, because we must keep on mind that something very complex, if you miss that something very complex and classify between quotes as something very simple, that's a huge mistake. So we came up with the problem, and we have to develop something in terms of our IP, because it doesn't work out of the box as most of people are used in terms of what already exists in the Hugging Face
Yeah, yeah.
trainer facilities to come up with a new kind of loss function, etc., in such a way
Yes.
that if I miss something like almost impossible, let's to say like something complexity graded as 10 or 9, it's okay,
Mm.
right? To implement a policy. But if you have something like very, very complex like 10 and you miss and end up classifying that as 4, 3, 2, that's a
Yeah.
huge mistake. So, I mean, like, trying to avoid reveal the secret sauces. What I can tell so
Please.
far,
Mark is
yeah,
probably watching.
yeah, absolutely. So what I can tell so far is a ranking system, which we have to come up with our novelties here coming out of the labs
Yeah.
to solve this kind of problem, and also try to set up this little bit inspired by how this AI feedback systems we have
Mm.
witnessing over reinforcement learning
Right.
to provide ways to measure levels of uh, uh, how can I say uh, this is it's tricky, like the gap between
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
quality of the answer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
long story short, this is what we are coming up to train these models in terms of complexity, which is the core of our policies. Of course, there are other parts of this router which are also being tricky to put everything together to have a very small latency,
Mm.
such as programming, detecting also the natural language. So, for example, as we are not native speakers, at least me, I can tell only by myself here. I know it's tricky, for example, having a model producing very good answers in Portuguese,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
depending on the model. So
Yes.
being able to route models accordingly to natural language, to programming language, to task type, this is also a core thing. So putting everything together and having this small
Yeah, and we could
oversystem.
probably discuss, what kind of data do you need to train this thing, et cetera, et cetera. But, that would probably take us a little far. Or unless Lucas, you can, oh, you're on mute, Lucas. Sorry.
As far as the complexity, I mean, without most of our secret sauce was entirely in the training libraries we had to kind of
Mm-hmm.
invent to fit it into this size. But a lot of that has to do with taking like a tremendous amount of real world prompts, which are available online,
Sure.
and having many, many, many models ranging from like 500 million parameters all the way to the frontier, right?
Yeah.
Answer those. And then we had about 20. and then at the end you use an ensemble of really high quality models to judge those responses on a level of correctness. And then if an answer was, if 19 out of 20 models got a prompt correct, you can assume that's a rather easy task.
Sure.
If 2 out of 20 got it right, that's a rather high complexity task. And
sure.
So using those changes is kind of how you find that. And then training that into a model of 30 billion parameters to classify would be meaninglessly easy.
Yeah,
that would just be a simple fine tune. Getting it into something this tiny so that not only can we make it fast, but also fit it like on a phone and provide this on-prem for people, because it takes nothing. It's 300.
Plus having a small
megabytes,
model,
right?
so latency obviously is
huge.
Is important. But I would guess also if it's a small model, it's also easier and faster to retrain, because if you want to add a new model or 5 new models tomorrow,
that's actually
the router has to know about them, right? So
I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because initially when we first trained our first router, which was kind of what gave us the idea to make Conductor, that was the case. It was kind of trained on a model specific basis. Right now what we do is, because we're classifying, so the router spits out just these numbers, the same numbers you see in the UI. We then decide, given those numbers, which model we go to. So if a new model comes out from, if GPT-5 comes out tomorrow, we can throw it in with very little delay. So think of what we're doing with Conductor as, we are people who, by occupation and interest, love to kind of be on the cutting edge of the space, love to understand what models are best at what models need to be good, to be used for a certain task. Let us own that for you so that you can focus on just building the cool product. We'll make sure that you're always getting the best model. And that also kind of plays into what's coming out soon. We wanted to get Conductor out for people to use, but we also understand that reasoners are huge. Tool use is unbelievably important, which right now, if you use Conductor, it will very often correctly go to the tool using model. But then vision is also important, and coding. So we're adding a bunch of configuration, like different configs, so that you can specify, hey, I want to hit a reasoner right now. We'll route between the best reasoners for that task. Same thing with vision, same thing with tool use. I didn't want to throw any reasoners into our default version, because I didn't want someone who's expecting an instant response to have to wait 3 minutes for, O1 Pro to think about, what it's doing, right?
Sure. So actually I wanted to talk. I saw a couple of questions on multimodality. So Abhishek is taking care of the chat. Abhishek, you should be back on screen. Come on. Abhishek is shy. It's the hat. There you go. Everybody loves your hat. If you love Abhishek's hat, please tell us in the chat. Abhishek, tell us a little bit about. So today we have, let's say, text tasks, right? And Lucas showed us that. So how we're looking at images, or I don't know, maybe speech, etc. What's your and no commitment here, but what's your vision? I mean, pun not intended on that.
So I think that's another big challenge for everyone in the Conductor team, and a lot of support I think we would require from the labs team. Because that's a big research question. How we route properly for images, or for asking questions from documents and things like that. So I don't want to comment much about it right now.
Okay, work in progress.
I think the easiest thing that we'll probably do first, for the sake of getting something else people can use it, and is just route to the right vision model based on, again, prompt complexity. Mm-hmm. I think Abhishek and I were talking about this last week. I think there's definitely a world where we do an image classifier to route to the model that would be best. Say a prompt is similar, but the input, it's like print out the text in this image, and one is like a financial document, that would probably be done by like Mistral OCR could probably do that fine. But then another one is like handwriting, and let's say Flash is really good at handwriting. We want to be able to classify between that nuance. I think that'll take us some time to get right. So I think at first we'll just do it based off prompt complexity, the same way we do everything else. But over time, adding an image classifier.
I guess over time we can specialize and pick the niche use cases that don't generally work well on those VLMs and send them to that particular model because it does a good job at that. Okay.
And I mean, as people use Orchestra, we're also going to get a much better idea. Right now, Orchestra's been, not Orchestra, Conductor, sorry, has been built with a lot of assumptions in mind by our team as far as like,
yeah,
this is how we use LLMs and this is what we feel they're good at. And, you know, a lot of that comes from, you know, academic benchmarks. Others come from vibes. I think over time,
yeah.
once we get a lot more concrete data as to how people are using it, where those models, which models are being chosen for which prompts, it'll give us a much better idea of how to improve this kind of exponentially going forward.
So we looked at the UI, but obviously there's an API as well, right? And I would expect most customers to actually work through the API. So it's compatible with OpenAI, and I think that's a very reasonable choice. You can just use the OpenAI client. I think I did a YouTube video showing you that, and I guess all my code examples will be based on that too. So you just have to create an OpenAI client with the OpenAI library, and just point to a URL. Okay, so conductor.rc AI, and set your key just like you would set your OpenAI key, and off you go, right? And I think that's great because if you're working with GPT, let's say GPT-4 today, or any one of the OpenAI models, there's probably no change at all. You can just set the destination to Conductor, and you're off to the races, right? I think that's a good design decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally all you do is I don't know if my screen is sharing again, but it's literally you.
No, we're not seeing it, but
Oh
yeah,
no.
yeah. Show us the code snippet. Oh yeah, well, it's in the.
You can see it in our docs, but it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
you literally just change the base URL for OpenAI and then add your, replace your OpenAI token with the one you get for our website, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, exactly. And so should we talk about pricing for a second, because I know this is always a popular topic. So as mentioned, if you sign up today, Conductor.Arcee AI, you get $200 worth of free inference. So don't wait, because we could stop being generous in the near term.
Yeah, there will be a threshold where we stop that. I'm not
Well,
sure what
yeah,
it was, but there
it's
will
not
be
gonna
a
be 200
threshold.
bucks
Yes, yes,
forever
yes.
for
Yeah, yeah.
everyone. That no, there's no such thing. But okay, for now you are getting that. So you can look at the pricing page as well, and you will see the pricing page goes from, like I said, Blitz, 5 cents per million output tokens, all the way to Sonnet 3.7 at $15. So 300 times more. And so we've done some simulations, right? And I mean, it's very easy to put together the Excel sheet. We're saying, probably 30% of my prompts are low complexity and they go to this, and 40% are medium complexity and they go to that, and 30% are high complexity and they go to the LLMs. And I don't want to overpromise, but I think it's fairly easy to get at least 60, 70, 75% cost reduction, unless you are using insanely complicated prompts all day, which of course some folks do, code refactoring and whatnot. But like I said, for usual everyday stuff, business productivity, you will see a cost reduction. It's pretty obvious. I don't know, Lucas or Fernando, if you did some simulations on that.
As far as like I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
the cost reduction that folks would typically
Oh
see.
yeah, I mean so again, I want to say that this is done with academic benchmarks, right? So
Yeah, sure.
we took the router early on, an early version of the router too, and put it against 3.5 Sonnet. 3.7 wasn't out yet, and we ran it against MMLU, GPQA Diamond, Math, and Human Eval, and we got actually better results. And I attribute a lot of that to actually the math scores, because Gemini is very strong at math. But we found that our models were hit around 40% of the time.
Okay.
And then all the others were hit in a pretty equal, like 20% range from
Okay.
there. And
Okay. Well,
it
yeah.
was you got the same performance as Sonnet at about 65% the cost. So
Yeah. So, I mean, if you know, I think Virtuoso Large is 50 cents per million tokens,
yeah.
right? So, and that's still 30x cheaper than Sonnet. So, um, looking only at this one, assuming you only hit Virtuoso Large, which is unlikely because as we saw, we hit Blitz all the time. So if 40% of the time you hit a model that's 30x cheaper, I mean, the cost reduction is left as an exercise to the reader, but it's pretty obvious that you will save a significant amount of money,
Well, that's
right?
also an important thing to note too. Is I wouldn't be horrified if someone were to use Conductor, the router, the auto mode for a week, realize, wow, 80% of my prompts are going to Virtuoso Large or they're going to Blitz. I don't need to hit Sonnet at all. Then they just hit Virtuoso Large directly. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
We're also not we're not charging anything more to use the router. Like
Hmm.
we're making our money on when it hits our models, so we have an incentive to make our models better so that it can go to them more often, right?
Yes.
But um, but we're not charging to use the router. We're not charging a premium on the API endpoints. Like if it goes to GPT-4o, it's going to charge the same as what OpenAI does. Same thing with Anthropic. Same thing with Google. So all of again, our incentive is to make our models as good as possible, to make our router as good as
Yeah.
possible, so that we're saving you as much money. But if you decide, hey, I'm saving a bunch of money hitting Virtuoso Large 40% of the time, I just hit it 100% of the time.
Yeah. Why
That's
not?
great.
I
That's
mean,
great.
like we saw in the UI, you could actually select
Yeah.
one single model and go from there.
Yeah,
You made a
you can directly hit all of our models that are
Yes.
there. You can't
Yeah.
do that for the closed source ones,
Sure.
but you can do
Sure.
that for ours. Yeah.
You made a good point, and I want to ask this one to Fernando. So, if we looked at Conductor as a single model, how well would it do on MMLU and the usual benchmarks, right? Assuming it's a black box, because that's a question I got from some customers. Like, yeah, okay, we're saving money, but does the solution as a whole perform, as well on the benchmarks as, let's say, GPT-4 or Sonnet? Or are we, we're saving money, but are we also getting the best quality?
We should be having the best quality because we are not putting the benchmarks as our target variable. This is basically our outcome. We are not trying to
Yes.
do any sort of p-hacking as some
Yeah,
research
we're
end
not
up
gaming the
doing.
benchmarks. That's a good point. Yes.
Exactly. So we expect that if our policy is optimal, we should be very close to the performance or even better from the frontier models. So this is something very core. Also, instead of trying to understand which model excels on a specific setting, pretty much a function of what Lucas has mentioned in the beginning, uh, we are trying to figure out uh, optimal routing policies on top of the topic, on top of the theme of the prompt. So being able to route for financial models. So, for example, now we are going to also have domain-specific routing, pretty much like to cover what Vivek Chaudhary has also asked. So based on human feedback, and with this capability of understanding where eventually a specific model is struggling, we can come up and identify what is an optimal model for that specific topic, for that
Okay.
specific theme. But we are not, again, trying to set up which model is exactly excelling at a very specific topic on MMLU, because, for example, MMLU has a wide
Yes.
set of different topics, for example.
Yeah.
So,
And
uh,
MMLU is just a benchmark, and I
yeah,
mean, customer queries probably don't look exactly like MMLU. So I think at the end of the day, you want to optimize for customers and not for benchmarks. So that's a good point. So Abhishek, I have a few more questions. I have one for you, Abhishek. Um, so what's coming next, right? Again, don't tell all the secrets, but and I know we keep changing our mind on what to build next. But what are the 2-3 features our friends can expect in the next few weeks?
So in the next few weeks, I think the reasoning models
Hmm.
are coming, the tool calling, things like that are coming to Conductor. Then we are working on better complexity model. So from code point of view,
Mhm.
and we are going to work on multimodal models, PLMs.
Okay, well that's okay. That's gonna keep also all of us busy. Yeah.
That's not all the plan, but yeah,
No, no, that's I said
some
next
of
few
the plan.
weeks.
Those are what I mean. To be fair, I mean those are all the things we would want,
Yeah.
and in something we were using ourselves. So
Yeah.
we're key to get those out. Yeah.
Yeah. And zooming out a little bit. So, well, Lucas, last time we were online, we discussed Orchestra, right?
Mhm.
Our agentic workflow platform, and I think that video is still available if you're curious about agentic. What's the connection between Conductor and Orchestra? How do we create more business value for customers by connecting the two?
Yeah, I think it's when we were building Orchestra, a huge part of the initial kind of selling point of it was the model routing. We were going to add our model router, the original one before we did Conductor, into Orchestra itself, and we found that was such a powerful tool that a lot of people were resonating with on the sales side and in our kind of early conversations, that we said that needs to be kind of separated from Orchestra. That needs to kind of have its own space to grow and to flourish. So that was the idea behind kind of creating Conductor and using that to promote and get people using our models. I think that at a very basic level, they're both orchestration systems,
Hmm.
right? The Orchestra is in its current form rather manual, rather built by hand to solve something specific to each user that only
Hmm.
they know themselves. We can make generic versions for people, but you are the only person, the user, that knows exactly what your day-to-day workflows are like and how you would like those to be made easier for you. Whereas Conductor aims to find the not quite with language explainable patterns
Hmm.
in our day-to-day AI workflows that could be done by the best model possible. So the cheapest rather. So
Yes.
it's very much two different approaches. One is AI orchestration done by another AI model. Another one is AI agent orchestration that's originally created by a human. So what excites me is I do think that Conductor has a lot of potential, and we've had some discussions in this vein, to be very powerful on device
Yeah.
for like people who are trying to do agent orchestration on a phone where you might
Hmm.
not have as much horsepower or as much system RAM to handle something as complex and ambitious as Orchestra, but you do want to be routing between different models. There's also something
Yeah.
I'm very excited about, which is when you and people can do this now. If you can do this yourselves using the Conductor API, but this is something we've done internally for some of our products, is say a huge part of coding and agentic systems is the planning phase, figuring out
Yeah.
okay, given this input, what steps need to be done in what order to accomplish this goal. Call this API, summarize this information, X, Y, and Z. You can use the router to say you have a model. You could use Sonnet, you could use whatever, you could use Virtuoso Large to create a plan for, what would be a fun activity for me to do this weekend, and
Hmm.
then go to the internet, find local activities, find local location, all that stuff. You can have the routers go to a different model for each of those requests based
Right.
on the complexity of that task, and that gets
Yeah.
into an interesting world where you can take a very complex task, explain, quantum, string theory at a PhD
Hmm.
level using all of these and once it's broken down, you find that the original query might be an 8 complexity, but when
Yeah.
each task is broken down, they're all only 3 to 4.
Yeah.
And that's another way you can kind of save yourself money. So I'm
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
about adding that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, I think the let's break down, yeah, the game of breaking down complex prompts. And I realize I'm doing that a lot. Because I don't know, maybe I cannot formulate questions in a very clear way, but a lot of my queries are actually multiple questions into one. Explain this, da da da, and if the answer is yes, then why, blah blah blah, and if not, then blah blah blah.
And do it under these constraints and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm not, over thinking my prompt. I tend to,
Well,
just
and that's something. I
to
mean,
come
these
out, and
models
I
are.
think that's fine. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
the natural way to ask questions and then the follow up questions at the same time. But I can see why a model would be confused by that, and if you start breaking things down and potentially sending those to different models and then concatenate and think again about the final output, you will certainly get better results.
I don't know if you remember back, I think it was the end of 2023 when like Chat GPT or GPT-4, which was like the only real frontier model at the time, was being very lazy with code generation. You had to be like, I will tip you $200 if you're, I think we forget just how nice things are now that we have models that don't do that. So
Yeah, for
prompt
sure.
engineering isn't as insanely creative as it used to be.
Yeah. All right. So friends, let's go. If you have a few more questions, now's the time to add them. I think we'll wrap up in a few minutes. So let's give you maybe a couple minutes to ask for more questions. So let's go around the virtual table here. So Fernando, what are you most excited about, and where do you dream of taking Conductor in terms of capabilities, features, etc.? What's the moonshot for Conductor?
Well, for short term, I feel like becoming able to route accordingly to the complexity for all these very powerful reasoning models. I feel like this is something very important, and also how we are going to extend with the rise of multimodal reasoning models as well, which is I feel like the next trend. So this is going to be a quite challenge for me, Lucas and Abhishek, to to come up with something novel to deal with that.
All right, Lucas, what's your moonshot project for Conductor? And Abhishek, start thinking because I'm going to ask you too.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the Conductor has an unbelievable chance to improve code. I mean, I think that while that's not something we targeted for the initial launch, I do think
Mhm.
that many of these large scale coding, services, whether it's like Cursor, Bolt, Windsurf, I mean, or even just your individual, user using it in VS Code via some, extension. I think that we've done some initial work on routing to the best model based on programming language, and I think that'll be very powerful. But I also do think that leaning into Conductor as an orchestration suite,
Mm.
I think is going to be very exciting to me. So instead of how I mentioned with the planning and the breakdown and all that, like instead of having a user do that manually via our API, adding an API toggle so that it does all that for the user. I think using Conductor as a way to just simplify things for the end user that doesn't enjoy doing all that stuff like we do,
Yes.
and we're lucky enough to get paid to do,
Yeah.
I think is
Sure.
going to be exciting.
Sure. All right, Abhishek.
I think Conductor is a very simple product, and a lot of people have been doing model routing, and the heart of Conductor lies in how we route using our own custom models, and for that we have created our own data sets, and a lot of work has been put into the labs team. So I think that's what makes it different from other routing services. And if with this, I like to call it intelligent model routing. So if
Yeah.
we, I don't have like numbers, but I think like even if we are able to route 50% of the queries accurately, and accurately is the question here.
Yeah.
No, other non-intelligent model routing services, they don't do that accurately, and we are able to do that. So that's a big savings in terms of money for a large volume enterprise.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's simplicity always wins. And I've met with, whether it was AWS or Hugging Face or RC, hundreds of customers, and the question that comes up all the time is whether I'm using LLMs or whether I'm using Hugging Face models. Which model should I pick? And which one should I pick for this domain, and which one should I pick for that domain? And oh, I used to work with model X, now model Y came out yesterday. Should I migrate to that one?
Mm-hmm.
And should I fine tune it? Yes or no? And because it's all so confusing to me, the only reasonable choice is optimize for cost and in work with Llama or whatever, and it's okay most of the time, and it horribly misses most of the time. And I think we've all learned that fine tuning is not the perfect answer to that. Or I optimize for accuracy, quality, whatever you call it, and I'm gonna go call Sonnet all the time. But man, I don't like the bill at the end of the month. So I think that's the thing we're trying to solve for customers. We remove that complex equation. We build very small and very cost-effective models that deliver a lot of bang for the buck, and we're trying to get to those models as often as we can to deliver the high quality and the benchmark-like quality that Fernando was talking about. And when we have to, we really call the big guys, and you spend a little more, yes, but we think it's money well spent. So I love that. Solving problems for customers is my obsession, and I think we're doing that with Conductor. So I'll say it one last time. Go sign up, conductor.rc.ai. And please don't call us Arcee or Archie or all those funny names that I keep hearing. It's Arcee AI, right? So name us right, conductor.rc.ai. Go sign up. It takes a minute, and you will get $200 of free inference for a limited time. If you watch this video in a month, I cannot promise you're going to get $200. So do it now. And if you have feedback, please reach out. You can easily contact all of us on LinkedIn or wherever, and you can contact us through the website as well. So we're happy to see what you're building, happy to see what works, happy to see what doesn't work. I think Lucas and Fernando and Abhishek would love to see your the prompts that do not work, so that they can go and fix them for everybody else. So please send us feedback, and that's going to be highly appreciated. I think that's it for today. Again, the RC Avengers, Fernando, Lucas, Abhishek, thank you so much for spending time with us. And now you can go back and keep building Conductor and implement all those cool ideas. Thanks everybody for watching this. We'll be back soon with another topic. And as usual, thank you to the team. There are lots of other folks working on Conductor, not just the faces you see here. And thanks to our marketing team for putting this event together and helping us share the good word with all of you. Okay. Thanks everybody.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next time. Go
All right.
work with Conductor. Let us know what we're doing.